Did you know that having bad credit can make you pay almost $1,000 more every year on car insurance compared to someone who has a DUI and excellent credit? That's insane. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not just car insurance. Bad credit can stop you from getting an apartment, a job. It can even make you pay more on your utilities. Today, we're diving into proven strategies that can help low income Americans improve their credit without spending a bunch of money you don't have on debts that you might not even owe. Most of the suggestions we're going to make today are free, and the most expensive one costs just $30. So if you've ever felt trapped by your credit, make sure you stick around because this video could just be a game changer for you. This has been on my mind a lot lately because my new friend has really been struggling with this. Her family has been homeless for a few years now, and when she finally made it into a homeless shelter, they told her she could only stay for a few months and only if she was applying for so many apartments every week. But her credit scores were wrecked from years of financial struggle, so she couldn't get accepted anywhere. It was so frustrating trying to drum up the money to cover the application fees for apartments that wouldn't even consider her applications because she didn't have the money to pay off these old debts. But it's not just a housing problem either. Reddit is full of stories of people who have been denied jobs because of bad credit. One particular poster named the Pros H Player described how they came back from a fantastic interview where everything had lined up perfectly, only to find out that they were shut out of the job because their credit score was impacted by student loan balances. In their words, I can't get a job because I'm in debt, and I'm in debt because I can't get a decent job. It's so unfair. And if you drive a car, your credit score can hurt your car insurance rates too. A recent study by the Consumer Federation of America found that drivers with bad credit and a clean driving record pay about $905 more per year on average than people who have a DUI with excellent credit. Bad credit can literally make you pay more than driving under the influence, and this is mind-blowing to me. Now, you're probably thinking I'm crazy, right? Surviving on a low income is hard enough without worrying about your credit score, too. You probably think it's too complicated, or worse, that I'm about to sell you something really expensive. That's not how things work here. I've been there. I've lived the low-income life. I know that you don't need another clueless guru to tell you to stop buying coffee. That's not the way we do things here on this channel. I'm just worried about you because this is a trap. You struggle financially, so you end up with a bad credit score, and then that score keeps you stuck in a cycle of poverty that is hard to beat. Landlords won't rent to you, employers won't work with you, everything costs more, and it's not fair. So let's look at 5 easy ways that you can start improving your credit score today. Before we dive into the details, I just want to remind everyone that I am not a financial advisor. Everything I'm about to teach you was learned through my own hard experiences. While I've lived through a lot and I've done my best to research these topics thoroughly, you should always consult with a certified financial advisor or other qualified professional for personalized financial advice. First, get your free annual credit report and check for errors. The Federal Trade Commission estimates that 1 in 5 people have an error on at least one of their credit reports. You are entitled to one free credit report from all 3 bureaus every single year. You need to be careful though, because there are a lot of scam sites out there that will trick you into paying, so you need to make sure that you order your report from annualcreditreport.com. This is the only website authorized by the federal government to provide orders for free annual credit reports. If you use another website, you'll usually get tricked into paying for something. You can also call 1-877-322-8228 to order your reports if you prefer. Once you get them, you'll need to review them carefully for accuracy. There are many different types of errors that can appear, and some will have more serious consequences than others. For example, I often find accounts that don't belong to me on my credit report because I have a sweet, wonderful sister-in-law with the same first and last name as me. We also shared an address at one point in time, and because of that, our credit reports often merge and show 2 birthdays, 2 names, 2 sets of all of the data. Even though it's an innocent mistake and not identity theft, it can still have a big impact on your score. Not to mention, it makes people really suspicious when your report shows 2 birthdays, 2 socials, and all of that. It's really frustrating. Sometimes a single debt will be listed multiple times, and that looks really bad because it makes you look like you owe a lot more debt than you actually do. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, if this happens to you, you should dispute the multiple listings with the credit bureaus and the companies that reported those debts. Basically, you just need to make sure that everything looks right and make sure you dispute anything that looks wrong. Second, send debt validation letters. letters. Debt collectors buy and sell debts all the time, often for pennies on the dollar. This is incredibly frustrating because it makes it hard to know who you owe and how much you owe. This is why I love debt validation letters. They force the company to prove that you owe the debt and that they have the legal right to collect on it. In 2021, my family ended up living in a hotel for quite a while because we couldn't get a rental. The rental market in our area was very competitive, and landlords kept telling me that if our credit wasn't good enough to buy a house, it wasn't good enough to rent a house either, which is frankly insane. In order to get a home for my family, though, I needed to raise our credit score fast. So I disputed basically all of the debts on our credit report by sending debt validation letters. These letters are pretty easy to figure out. I used a template I found on the internet, filled it in with my information, and mailed it myself for just the price of postage. Living in a hotel, I didn't even have to pay to print it because I could use the business center. But if you want more help, you can use the debt validation letter from SoloSuit. Their guided system will have you enter information about you and about the debt through a series of guided prompts, and then they'll generate a letter for you that you can print out and mail to the debt collector. It currently costs about $30 to have that letter generated by SoloSuit, and you can use the affiliate link below if you want to try that. But honestly, I've always written my own and sent them myself, and they seem to work okay, so don't feel any pressure to use SoloSuit unless you want some help with that process. Anyway, after I mailed those letters, a few accounts mysteriously disappeared from our credit report. I guess the company that was reporting the debt couldn't actually prove that we owed it, because I haven't heard anything since, and it's been several years now. About 2 months after I mailed those letters, our credit score had increased enough that we were able to get a rental. It took a lot of work to do that, but it all started with checking my credit report for errors and sending those debt validation letters. There are a few more steps that can help you out though too. Third, make sure you're getting credit for the bills you pay on time. Like I said earlier, I always paid my rent on time even if I couldn't pay anything else because I never want to be homeless again. Rent doesn't usually show up on your credit report though, and that's why I love tools like Rent Reporters and Clear Now. These services can report your on-time rent to the credit bureaus, which can help you build credit just by paying your rent. Now, these services do cost a little extra. I know that sucks when you don't have a lot of money to start with, but if you can spare $10 to $15 a month, these services can make a big difference. I've used them both, and honestly, I love them. After we finally got into our rental, we used both of these tools to improve our credit, and because of that, we were able to buy a house about 18 months later. That was amazing for our family, and these tools played a big part in that because they made sure that our on-time rent was always reported to the credit bureaus. Now, Rent Reporters costs about $10 a month, and it reports to TransUnion and Equifax. You can set this up on your own. Your landlord doesn't have to do anything but verify that you paid. They have a one-time enrollment fee of $95, but with that fee, they can report up to 4 years of past rental payments. This was amazing for us and had a huge impact on our score right away. Of course, they don't report to Experian though, and that's frustrating because different lenders pull reports from different bureaus, so it's really helpful to have your rent reported to all three. This is especially true if you want to buy a house someday, since mortgage lenders usually pull all 3 reports and then use the middle score to decide if you're eligible. That's why I also used Clear Now, which only reports to Experian. This is a little more difficult because it requires your landlord to set it up, and it costs an extra $15 a month just to report to the one bureau, so you'll have to decide if that's worth it for you. And of course, if you're worried about reporting your rent because you sometimes pay a few days late, don't worry. Rent Reporters says that as long as you pay within 30 days of the due date, it'll be reported as an on-time payment to the credit bureau. But rent isn't the only bill that usually doesn't show up on your credit report. There's a lot of things that you already pay for that only show up if they're going to show up negatively because they ended up in collections, and that's frustrating. There are a lot of different tools out there that claim to report everything from your utilities to your streaming services, but they often come with a lot of fine print that you need to understand. 2 examples are Extra Credit from Credit.com and Experian Boost. Both of these tools require you to link a bank account so that they can comb through your records and find those on-time payments. Personally, I don't like linking my bank account to anything for security reasons, so I won't use those services myself, but I wanted to throw that out there as an option if you really need that reported. Another thing you need to know about Experian Boost is that they say that they can report your rent, utilities, cell phone bill, and even your streaming services to your credit, which sounds great, but they report it in a way that many lenders just ignore. There are many different scoring models out there, and most of them just straight up ignore Experian Boost, so in my opinion, it's not super worth it. Fourth, don't let student loans drag you down. Unpaid student loans can wreck your score, especially if you have a bad payment history. About 20% of student loan borrowers are in default, which means they've missed at least 270 days of payments, according to Pew Trusts. That's 1 in 5 borrowers. The easiest way for low-income Americans to stop student loans from wrecking your credit and stop them from leading to garnishment is to apply for an income-driven repayment plan. These plans determine your payments based on your income. The lower your income is, the lower your payments will be. In fact, millions of people qualify for $0 a month payments. And you don't really have to worry about being late when you don't owe a payment at all. Under the SAVE plans, a single borrower who earns less than $32,800 a year will not have a student loan payment at all. The income limits vary based on household size. So if you have a family of 4, you can earn up to $67,500 and not owe anything towards your student loans. It's easy and free to apply for an IDR plan at studentaid.gov/IDR. But if you want help figuring all of this out, you can call the Student Loan Relief Helpline from CareConnect USA, our sponsor, at 888-201-0431. When I first applied for my IDR, I was a few payments behind on my loans. I was fresh out of college, and I was caught off guard when my forbearance period ended. The lovely people that I spoke to at the call center were able to help me set up a $0 a month payment plan and remove those past due payments from my credit report because I shouldn't have owed them at all. I'm not sure if that's something that they can do for everyone, but it never hurts to ask because having those bad payments removed is magical for your credit. So if your student loans are impacting your credit, please contact your loan servicer and let them know about your situation. See if you qualify for an IDR, and when you do, ask them to remove the past due payments from your credit report. If they're able to do that for you, it can do wonders for your score. Fifth, strategize for success. Now, going forward, it helps to understand how credit is calculated so that you can strategize a little better. So think of your credit score as a pie chart cut into 5 slices. Each slice represents part of your financial behavior. The biggest slice, which accounts for almost a third of the pie, is your payment history. Do you pay your bills on time? The next slice is also a big one, and that's how much you owe compared to how much credit is available to you. The rest of the pie is split into smaller slices: the length of your credit history, the types of credit you have, and any new accounts that you've opened recently. When you put all those slices together, you get your credit score. But this is where it gets tricky because there are many different recipes for this particular pie, and we call those scoring models. Different companies might weigh the slices a little differently. Some may care more about your payment history, and others might focus more on how long you've had your credit, but you don't need to worry too much because almost all of the models look at these same basic ingredients, just in slightly different ways. But it's important to understand all of the different parts of the pie because they work together. Think of it like baking. Even if you have the best flour in the world, it's not going to make a great pie if you don't have any of the other ingredients. So even if you're doing really well in one category, like paying your bills on time, you're not going to get a perfect credit score if you're lacking in the other areas. So payment history is pretty straightforward. You pay your bills on time, your score goes up. You don't, it goes down. Late payments generally aren't reported until you're at least 30 days late, so do your best to make sure things don't get that far. If you're struggling to pay all of your bills on time, please check out our other videos on our channel for ways that you can get help paying everything from rent to utilities and anything else you might need. The percentage of credit you're using is also another major factor. If you have a $500 credit card and you're carrying a $499 balance, that's going to look pretty bad to a lender. Paying that balance down can help your score go up, and it can also save you from paying costly interest payments along the way. Now, I know this is really hard to do when you're barely scraping by, but please try to save your credit cards for emergency situations and use the resources on our channel to get help with your daily living expenses. The type of credit you have also makes a difference. Ideally, credit bureaus want to see a mix of different things like credit cards, vehicles, and home loans. If you only have one type of credit, that's going to reduce your score. Just be really careful with that. When we wanted to apply for our first mortgage, my husband and I were told that we needed to diversify our credit. Our lender advised us to open 3 to 5 new credit lines. It worked, and we were able to buy our house a few months later because our credit score had improved enough. But a few months later, we discovered that we couldn't maintain those payments. Homeownership was a lot more expensive than we'd expected, and we couldn't pay those minimum balances on all the lines we'd opened. As a result, our credit was wrecked, and that's why so many years later we found ourselves living in a hotel because our credit was so bad we couldn't get a rental. It was the advice to diversify our credit and our inability to manage that debt effectively that left us homeless for a while, so please be careful. The length of your credit history also matters. This is why it's almost always a bad idea to close old accounts that are in good standing. If the account is still open and reporting a good payment history, just don't touch it. When my husband was in the military, we were approved for an MWR card that didn't appear to work anywhere. Nobody on base had ever seen it before. Nobody knew how to use it, and thank goodness, because that meant we couldn't run up a balance on it. That little $500 card reported a good payment history for almost 10 years before it was closed for non-use, and it made a huge difference on our credit because it was often the only good payment history that we had. So if you have something like that that's reporting good for you, but you're not using it, don't touch it, leave it alone, it's still helping you. Your credit history also suffers when you apply for new credit, but this often only affects your score to a small degree. Hard inquiries can be damaging, so be careful when you apply for credit. A lot of retailers will offer you a discount on your purchase if you apply for their credit card, even if you're not approved, but in the process, you could be damaging your credit score. Now, if at this point you want to head for the hills and never use credit again, I understand, but I have one final word of warning for you. I have some very dear friends who moved to India for a few years. Before they left, they sold everything, paid off all their debts, and closed all their credit lines. Despite the fact that they were extremely financially responsible, this meant that when they finally returned to the States, they didn't have a score at all. Like, none. And that made it hard to get a house, difficult to get a car, very hard to reestablish their life. And it was really frustrating for their family because our culture is so dependent on credit. Anyway, I hope this helps. Don't forget to check out our recent video about grant programs for more ways that you can put extra cash in your pocket. I'll see you there.